Hello, welcome to another maths video tutorial at Gleaming Moon School, Umuahia. This is Mrs. Edith Igwe and we'll be looking at multiplying by powers of 10 in this video SF03. So grab your maths book and pen, follow all the instructions that I would give you, practice the example exercises and watch this video over and over and over. And in no time, you will become a master of mathematics. Right. In this video, our objective would be to multiply whole numbers and decimals by powers of 10. And in order to achieve this objective, we're going to go through three processes. The first one would be to do a recap on powers of 10. If you haven't watched our video SF01 powers of 10, I suggest you watch it now because you need that skill in order to understand what we are doing in this video, okay? And once we've done our recap, we multiply numbers by positive powers of 10. So we'll look at how to multiply when the power of 10 is positive. And then we also look at how to multiply when the power of 10 is negative. Okay, recap. Do you remember what 10 raised to the power of 0 is? That's right, 1. And 10 raised to the power of 1 is? Beautiful, 10. How about 10 raised to the power of 2? Fantastic. You are making me proud. That is 100. Good. You're remembering what you watched in that video. Well done. If you're not getting what we are doing, like I said before, go back and watch SF01 powers of 10. How about 10 raised to the power of 3? That's 1,000. Power of 4, 10,000. Power of 5, 100,000. Power of 6, 1 million. And power of 7 gives us 10 million. Now let's look at the negative powers. See if you remember what we said the negative powers are. 10 to the power of negative 1. What is it? Absolutely fantastic. That is 0.1. And 10 raised to the power of minus 2 is 0.01. Minus 3, 0.001. Minus 4, 0.0001. Minus 5, 0.00001. And minus 6 is 0.000001, and 7 is 0.0000001. Absolutely beautiful. Well done. I'm really proud that you're remembering what we did last time. That is good. You're becoming a master of mathematics even before I can guess. Well done. Right. Now, in order to make it a bit more clearer what we are doing, let's say this is your number line. We're going to use a number line to illustrate how the powers of 10 are ordered, okay? So that's the center of your line. And remember, we start with which number? Beautiful. We start with the number 1. And what power of 10 is 1? Fantastic. Power 0. So if we start with 1, which is your unit place value, and we go backwards towards the left 1 place, we multiply by 10. So 1 times 10 will give us 10. And 10 as a power of 10 is 10 raised to the power of 1. Now if we go 1 more place to the left again, we multiply again by 10, and that gives us 100, which is 10 raised to the power of 2. We go another 1 place to the left again, we multiply a 3rd time by 10, which would give us 1,000, which is 10 raised to the power of 3. So you can see as we move up place by place towards the left-hand side of the number line, our number gets bigger, okay? Now, let's come back to the units place on the number line. this time we want to move to the right. So if we move one place to the right, we have multiplied by 10 as we move to the left. Now we are moving in the opposite direction. What do you think we will do? What's the opposite of times 10? Fantastic. Someone just said divide by 10. Absolutely correct. So we divide by 10. And 1 divided by 10 is going to give you 0.1. And as a power of 10, that will be 10 raised to the negative power of 1. Now we move another place to the right once more. Again, we divide by 10, and that gives us 0.01, which is 10 raised to the power of -2. Now we move another place to the right. That is also dividing by 10. So we have now divided by 10 3 times. And that's going to give us 0.001, which is 10 raised to the negative power of 3. So again, as you can see here, that moving from the unit place, going towards the left, the number gets greater than 1. Going from the unit, moving to the right, the number gets less than 1. Now then, let's now look at how we multiply by powers of 10 using positive powers. Now, this is our number line here. I've left it here so we can see what we are doing. So let's start with 12. 12 times 10 raised to the power of 0. We know that 10 raised to the power of 0 is 1. So this is exactly the same as 12 times 1. And 12 times 1 simply is 12. Nothing to worry about, nothing to bother your head with. Now the next one is 12 times 10 raised to the power of 1. Let's go to the number line here. 10 raised to the power of 1 is the same as 10. So that's the same as 12 times 10. Now 12 times 10 will give us 120. Okay? And then 12 times 10 raised to the power of 2. And 10 raised to the power of 2 is 100, so which is the same as 12 times 100. And 12 times 100 would give us 1,200. Now 12 times 10 raised to the power of 3. 10 raised to the power of 3 is 1,000. So that makes it the same as 12 times 1,000. So if you have 1,000 in 12 places, that simply gives us 12,000. Okay, so you can see very easy when it comes to multiplying by whole numbers. Okay, we are multiplying positive powers of 10 by whole numbers, and you can see how dead easy it is. We've got 12, you just add 0 on, depending on what the power says. The power says 1, you add 1 0. The power says 2, you add 2 zeros. The power says 3, you add 3 zeros. Now let's see what happens when we are multiplying by a decimal number. It's a little bit different. Now that will make us now look closely into the rule, what we are actually doing. Here we are just adding 0, but there is something beneath that we are doing which we don't even know. But we are going to see that when we multiply by decimal. So let's take 0.3 times 10 raised to the power of 0. Obviously, 10 raised to the power of 0, just like we have in our 12th one, is 1. So that's 0.3 times 1. So again, no quibbles. You don't need to bother your head. That simply is 0.3. But how about 4.5 times 10 raised to the power of 1? 10 raised to the power of 1 means 10. So 4.5 times 10. Now we look at something now. We've got 10 here. Let me get my highlighter. So we've got 10 and it has 1 0 here. Okay. Now this 0 is one place. Now look at the number line. As we move up, as we times 10, we are moving up from one place value to the next place value. Okay. So now this 0, this decimal point here, will move to the right. When you multiply by a positive power of 10, so we move it to the right this way. Okay, so this decimal point, instead of being between 4 and 5, it will now come after 5. And that is going to give us 45. Now, 9.43 times 10 raised to the power of 2. Now, 10 raised to the power of 2 is 100, so that gives us 9.43 times 100. So now we have, again, we have 2 zeros. So that means we are going to move our decimal point. Okay, so we're going to move our decimal point from here 2 times. So we go 1 and 2. Okay, and that's going to give us 943. Let's look at the last one. 0.034 times 10 raised to the power of 2. Again, 0.034 times 100. So what are we doing again? We are doing exactly the same thing we did here for 9.43. So we move our decimal point 2 places to the right, 1 and 2. So if we move it there, we are going to have 3.4. Okay, so what did you notice? I already explained it, so you should have noticed it actually. So now, what we've got is, I'm giving you another example now, 13 times 10 raised to the power of 2, which is 13 times 100. So what do we do? I'm breaking it down a little bit more now so you can see the slow motion of what I've done. So we start with 13, the whole number that we have there. Okay, so that's 13. This is 2 zeros. So as 13 is there, that means you have a decimal point here, right? You have a decimal point there. Every whole number has a decimal point at the end of the number. Anytime you see a whole number, there is an invisible decimal point at the end. When we did whole numbers and decimal numbers, if you haven't done it, go back to that video, SFO2, whole numbers and decimal numbers. Okay, it explains what I am talking about here. So we have the decimal point here. So, and we are multiplying by a positive power. And it says 2, because it's 2, we are going to move this decimal point 2 places to the right. So we go 1, okay, that's the first place. That place is blank. What do we do? What did we call it in the last video, SFO2, whole numbers and decimals? You use a 0 placeholder. You put your 0 there. Okay, so you can see the 0, we put that 0 there, but we haven't finished because we need to move it how many times? 2 times. So this is the first move. So we move again, and the second move. So we've done the second move now. Okay, so we've moved 1 and 2. We place it, we hold the place again with another 0. Okay, so this decimal point, we now bring it over. Okay, we bring over the decimal point here. Can you see what we've done? So we have moved the decimal point from here, 1 and 2. Okay, so that brings our answer to 1,300. Does that make sense? Now let's look at a decimal one. We've looked at the whole number, how you move your decimal points on a whole number in places with 0 placeholders. Now we have a decimal number. So let's have 3.549 times 10 raised to the power of 2. Again, we have a positive power. And because we have a positive power, we are going to move it to the right. We're going to move our decimal point to the right. So what we do is, first of all, again, remember that 10 raised to the power of 2 means 100. So we are doing 3.549 times 100. Okay, so we start by writing the number. Can you see the whole number we have there? That's all the numbers, but this number has a decimal point. Can you see the decimal point? This is the decimal point, and this decimal point is located between 3 and 5. So now we are going to have a look at the power. The power says 2, that's 100. There are 2 zeros there. So, and because the power is a positive power, you're moving it to the right. So I'm going to move this decimal point 2 places to the right. So if I go 1 and I go 2, so my decimal point will become here. So let me move that decimal point. I move this decimal point. Let's get it moved. Come on, decimal point. Okay, I move this decimal point and put it here. So instead of 3.549, we will now have 354.9. So our answer here will be 354.9. Okay, so this brings us to the rule, the first rule, rule number 1. When you're multiplying numbers by powers of 10, the first rule that you would think about is when the index is positive, you move the decimal point to the right by the same number of places as the value of the index. So the key words here are positive, index, right, and places. Okay, so these are the 4 keywords we are looking at. You're multiplying by a power of 10. You look at the index. Now remember, the index is the same as the power. It's also called the exponent. I explained all that when we did powers of 10 in the video powers of 10. So when the index, that power is a positive number, so in this case we have an index of 2, which is a positive number, you move the decimal point to the right. So positive index, move to the right. Positive index, move to the right. Okay, and then how many times do you move it? You move it the same number of places as the value of the index. So if the index says 2, you move it 2 places. If the index says 3, you move it 3 places. If the index says 4, you move it 4 places. So whatever the index says, that's the number of places you will move it. Now, I'm going to ask you now, okay, before I ask you that, one more key information is that you can add zeros as placeholders. We did it in this first example. We moved the decimal point 2 places, and because nothing is there, we added 0 as placeholders here, making it 1,300. For the second one, we already have digits there, so there is no need to add 0 to hold any place because the places are already held by digits. So now I'm going to ask you, in your book, you must write this down. This is a very important information. You're going to need it because I'm going to give you some exercises to do. So make sure you write down these 2 examples I've given you with these annotations that I have made here. This one is moving it 1 and moving it 2. Here also you're moving the decimal point 1 and 2. And make sure you copy this rule down, rule number 1. So pause the video, write these things down. Okay, now here's your turn. I want you to pause the video, work out the following multiplications, answer the questions, and after that, play the video and I will display the answers. All right, here are the answers. Check your answer. If there are ones you got correct, give yourself a very big tick because that means you're following my explanations. If there are ones you didn't get right, pay attention because I'm going to explain every single question here. Okay? Right, number 1, we have 23 times 10 raised to the power of 4. Now remember, the power is 4. So, and it's a positive power, so that means you're moving your decimal number. Well, you don't need to worry about moving decimal points. When you have a whole number, so on this side, we have whole numbers, so you don't need to worry about decimal points. All you need to think about is adding 0, especially where your power is positive. Okay, so 23, you just write your 23, and then you add how many zeros? The power says 4, so you add 4 zeros. So you can see my 4 zeros here. That's it. 42 times 10 raised to the power of 2, your power says 2. You write your whole number, 42, and you add 2 zeros. Okay, 51 times 10 raised to the power of 5, your power says 5. You write your whole number, 51, and add 5 zeros. Okay, 108 times 10 raised to the power of 1, your power says 1. So that means, sorry, my thing is not so, all right, let's clean that and do it properly. Okay, so your power says 1, that's it, that's better. So you write your 108 and add 1 0. Dead easy. Now let's look at this. This is where you need to worry about decimal point. So you need to pay attention to where the decimal point is and how many times you need to move it and in what direction that you need to move it. So the power is positive, so you're going to the right. Okay, so your decimal point is here, you're going to move 5 times. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You see that? You already have digits in these places. We have 2 places here. You use your 0 to hold it as your placeholder. And that makes your answer. So let's change the color for the placeholder. So let's erase that. Okay. So for your placeholder, okay, so that's your placeholder. Oopsie daisy. Okay, here we go. So that's your placeholder, 2 zeros. Okay, now for this one, you have power of 3. So again, you're moving to the right because it's a positive power. The power says 3, so you're going to move 3 times. So you go 1, 2, and 3. So again, you have 2 places that you need to hold with 0. So you write your whole number, that is 426, and then you put your 20, which makes it 42,600. Okay, right. The next one, you have raised to the power of 0. How many people got this? I know some people might get confused with number 7. If you got number 7 correct, then send me a message on our Facebook page and tell me that you got number 7 absolutely correct, because I will be thrilled that you really made sense out of this, because 10 raised to the power of 0 means what? 1. So if it means 1, that means what you're doing here is 0.0051 times 1. You're simply multiplying by that. My 1 doesn't look right. Let me just rub it off. I don't have to write anything, or maybe I just use text. Okay, so so basically what you're doing is 0.0051 times 1. That's simply what you are doing, because 10 raised to the power of 0 is 1. And that is why your answer is exactly the same as where you started, because the same thing times 1 is the same thing, right? Cool. Okay, so let's look at the last question. 10.8 times 10 raised to the power of 4. Again, the power says 4. Your decimal point is here. So that means you're going to move it. Your power is positive, so you're moving it to the right. So you go 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you have 1, 2, 3 places to hold. So for those 3 places you need to hold, you add 3 zeros. So you write your 108 and 3 zeros, and that gives you 108,000. Okay. Right, let's move on. Now we've looked at multiplying both whole numbers and decimal numbers with powers, positive powers of 10. Now we're going to see what it looks like when the power of 10 is negative. Okay. Let's say you have 10 raised to the power of 3. You remember what we have, what we say? We start from 1. It's the same as 1 times 10 raised to the power of 10. And 10 raised to the power of 10 is 100. So that's 1,000, sorry. And so that is 1 times 1,000, which is the same as 1,000. Now remember, if it's negative power, 10 raised to negative power 2, that means the opposite of times, which is 1 divided by 10 raised to the power of 2, which is 1 divided by 100. So if we do our long division, let me do it by the corner here. So if we use our long division method, so we have 1, and we want to divide 1 by 100, okay? So we want to divide 1 by 100. How do we do it? Who remembers how we do that? We did that when we were looking at powers of 10. So 100 cannot divide 1, right? So above here, you write 0 and put a decimal point, right? And then you come back to your 1 and add 0 in front. That makes it 10, right? 100, can 100 still divide 10? No, it can't. So you go back here, put 0, and come back here and add another 0. So that makes this 100. Can 100 now divide 100? Yes. 100 divide 100 once. So you go back there and put 1, okay? And then you do 1 times 100. 1 times 100 will give you what? 100. So you write 100, okay? So that gives you, so now you have 100 and 100, and then you do what? You subtract. So 100 minus 100 will give you 0. And that means you have finished, right? So that makes your answer to this 1 divided by 100, 0.01. And that brings our answer here to 0.01. Okay? Let me see if I can keep that by the corner. Well, not really. I'm going to have to rub it off. You should all know how to do long division by now. So I'm going to rub this off. I'm going to rub off at least the number part because I would need to do this again. Okay, so let's see the next one. So this time now we have a number multiplied by a power of 10, a negative power of 10. So in the first one, we looked at 10 to negative power 2, which is 1 divided by 10 to power 2, which is 1 divided by 100, which is 0.01. Now in this case now, we have 2 times 10 raised to the power of minus 1. So again, we start with the 2. We already have 2 there. So we have 2 times, that's separate now, okay? But then we have this one, which we are going to get separately. So we have 10 raised to the power of minus 1. So 10 raised to the power of minus 1, we bring it over. What is 10 raised to the power of minus 1? Okay, we know that that equates to 1 divided by 10 raised to the power of 1. Okay, so that's what this equates to. All right. Now, if we get that, we have a whole number here, 2, and we have 1. So we multiply these two together. 2 times 1 is going to give us 2, right? Then we now have divide by 10 raised to the power. Well, 10 raised to the power of 1 is 10. So it's simply 2 divided by 10. So we go back to our long division again. So if we have 2 in here, so this time we are dividing 2 by 10. Okay. We are dividing 2 by 10. All right. How do we do that? Does it work? Absolutely not. 2 cannot be divided by 10. So again, we do the same thing we do during our long division method. So we put 0 and add a decimal point. And as long as we add the decimal point, we have to come back to these 2 here. Okay. We come back to these 2 here and add 0. That makes it 20. Can 10 go into 20? Absolutely. 10 divides 20 how many times? It divides it 2 times. And if we do 2 times 10, what will 2 times 10 give us? It will give us 20. So we have 20 minus 20 will give us what? 0. So that means we've solved that problem. So 2 divided by 10 is going to give us the answer 0.2. Okay, right, for the final one, if we have 12 times 10 raised to the power of -3, exactly the same thing we've done with this 1 above is what we're going to do here. So again, we start by 12 times, and we need to transport our 10 raised to the power of -3. We need to transport it over here and expand it. We need to transport and expand. And if we are transporting and expanding, what are we going to get? We will get 1 divided by 10 raised to the power of 3. So we now do the same thing we did here. 12 times 1 will give us 12. And then we divide by 10 raised to the power of 3, which will give us 1,000. So if we go back to our long division here again, so this time what we have in here is 12. Okay, we have 12 and we are dividing it by 1,000. Okay, that's a big number to divide 12. So first of all, we know that that will not go. Okay, so because that will not go, let's get these off. Okay, because we know that will not go, we put in 0, don't we? And then we add a decimal point. But once we've done that, we make sure we add a 0 in front of 12, making it 120. Still, 1,000 divide 120, does it go? Nope, it doesn't go. So we add 0 there, and then come back here again and add another 0. And now it gives us 1,200. Now 1,200 divided by 1,000 will give us how many? How many 1,000 times 1,200? We have 1. Remaining what? 200. Now that 200 that is remaining, what we now do is we do 1 times 1,000. 1 times 1,000 will give us what? 1,000. And just like we were doing with the other ones, we subtract. So 1,200 subtract 1,000 is going to give us 200. Okay, so we still have a number to divide. So now 1,000 cannot divide 200, can it? So what do? What we do is we add a 0, and that makes it what? 2,000. So 1,000 divide 2,000 is going to give us what? How many 1,000 times 2,000? There are 2 of them. And 2 times 1,000 is going to give us what? 2,000. And if we do another subtract here, 2,000 take away 2,000 will only give us 0. Okay, and that means we have finished. So you can see that 12 divided by 1,000 will give us 0.012, which would be our answer here, 0.012. Okay, so you can see how we divide by 10. This is the maths part, but I'm going to show you a trick by the time we look at the rule for this one. So you can see how we divide to work out when we multiply by a negative power of 10. Now, let us see what rule that brings us to. Okay, that brings us to the rule. Let's get these off. Brings us to the rule number 2. And what does the rule number 2 say? That when the index is negative, what do? You move the decimal point to the left by the same number of places as the value of the index. So you can see is exactly the same thing we've done with the positive powers. The keywords here again, index, positive, decimal point, and places. Okay, so for when it is positive, when the power of 10 is positive, you're moving to the left. Oh, I forgot that. That's another key point. When it's positive, you're moving to the right. But when it is negative, you're moving to the left. So we have done the positive one. We've moved to the right and added 0 in front. If you remembered what we did in SFO1 powers of 10, when you have negative powers of 10, the 0 comes before the 1. But in the positive, the 0 comes after. And there is a decimal point to put in when there is a negative power. And that is exactly the same thing that is applying here. Okay? So a negative index power moves the decimal point to the left by the same number of places as the value. So let's see how this works. Remember, you can always add your 0 as a placeholder. We didn't need to add 0 here because we worked it out. We used the long division method to do it. But I'm going to show you now the shortcut of how we do this without bothering about the long division method. So let's have a look. Let's clear these drawings. Okay. So now, let's say we have 6.78 times 10 raised to the power of minus 3. Okay. So you have your decimal point here. Let's look at it. The index is negative, right? So we have negative index here. We need to move the decimal point to the left. And how many number of places? So here's your power. Negative, it says 3. So we are going to the left how many times? 3 times. So from here, you go 1, 2, and 3. So your new decimal point will now be here. Sorry, this is my decimal. Let me do that properly. So it will look more like a decimal point. Okay. So here's your decimal point. Yeah, that's better. So that's your decimal point now. So what do we do to do spaces? You add 0 placeholders. So that would give your answer to be 0.0067. So if I do it on here, you can see your decimal point was between 6 and 7, and you moved 1. Oopsie, I need to change that color. I don't like that color. It needs to be different. So you move your decimal point between 6 and 7 to 1, 2, and 3. Okay, to the left. That's where you move it to when your power is negative. Now let's look at another example. So here now we have 753.4 times 10 raised to the power of minus 2. Again, that's your power is negative. So that means you're moving your decimal point to the left. Okay, so if you move it, you're going to move it 2 times. So from here, you're going to go 1 and 2. And in this case, you don't need 0 placeholder because you have all the digits you need. So that would bring your answer to 7.534. Okay. And the final example, 23 times 10 raised to the power of -5. So again, here is your power. -5 is a negative power. So that means you're moving to the left. And remember, every whole number has their decimal point where? After the number. So that means there is a decimal point here. Okay, there's a decimal point there. And what are you doing now? You're going to move that decimal point 5 times to the left. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so you put your new decimal point there. Can you see that? So if you put your new decimal point there, you have 1, 2, 3 places that you need to hold with a 0. Okay, you need to hold these 3 places with a 0, and that will bring your answer to 0.00023. Okay, so I'm going to ask you again, for multiplying by negative powers of 10, write down my illustrations here. Make sure you put down these annotations that I have written. Copy the rule number 2 and the additional information on the rule. Copy everything down. You can go back and practice with the initial questions that I showed you before you do the exercise that is coming next. So pause the video and make sure you write this down. Okay, now here is your turn. Work out the following multiplications. Pause the video again. Show yourself what you've learned in this lesson. Work this out and then play again to see the answers. Okay, here are the answers. If you got them right, any ones you got right, give yourself a massive tick, because you should pat yourself on the back and say, well done, you have done incredibly well. Okay, but I'm going to explain every single question so that if there are any ones you didn't get right or anyone that you didn't quite understand how it's done, you pay attention to get that. Okay, right, so for number 1, we have 201.3 times 10 raised to the power of -5. So the power is a negative, okay? And because it's a negative, you will do what? Move your decimal point to the left, okay? So you're gonna go from here and go how many places? 5 places to the left. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that leaves you with 2 places that you need 0 to hold. So if you come to the answer we have here, you can see that the decimal point originally is between 1 and 3, which is here. And if you move your decimal point 5 places to the left from where it is between 1 and 3, you will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can you see the new decimal point where it is? So in the same way, this one, number 2, 42.6 times 10 raised to the power of -3. So because your power is -3, you're moving your decimal point to the left. So your decimal point originally is between 2 and 6 here, okay, and you're moving it 3 times, 1, 2, and 3. So you can see where your new decimal point is. For number 3, your power says -1, so you're moving your decimal point once to the left, and your decimal point originally is between 0 and 5, and if you move it once to the left, you can see where it gets to, 0.051. Number 4, your power says -4, So again, you're moving your decimal point 4 times to the left. Now, this is a whole number, and as whole numbers, remember, the decimal point for whole numbers is always at the end of the number. So in this case, your decimal point originally was there, and now you want to move it how many times? 4 times. So you go 1, 2, 3, and 4. That brings you to your new decimal point. Number 5, it says -6. Again, decimal point is moved to the left 6 times. And where is your decimal point originally? Is a whole number, so that means your decimal point was at the end originally. And this time, you're moving it 6 places. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. Number 6, it says 1 place. And your decimal point is between 2 and 6. So from 2 and 6, you just move it once, and it brings you straight to where you are. Remember, you're moving it to the left. And then number 7, your power is -5. And your original decimal point is between 5 and 1 here, okay? And you are moving it how many times to the left? You're moving it 5 times to the left. So you're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, okay? And finally, number 8, it says -3. So that means you're moving 3 places to the left. And this is a whole number, 10. Here's your whole number, 10. And your decimal point is at the end here. If you notice, you will find that this 0 has a different color. I will explain that in a minute. So your decimal point is at the end of your whole number, and your power says 3, -3. So you're moving to the left 3 times. So you go 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now, having gone there, your answer becomes 0.01. Your actual answer is 0.01. You do not need this 1 at the end because it has no value. You don't need it to hold any place because this place does not affect the 1. Okay, so once it's a decimal number, any 0 after the last non-zero digit has no value, doesn't need to be there. It's just like having a whole number 10.0. You don't need 0.0. Okay, or it's just like having 001. You don't need those 00 because they don't make any sense. They don't add any value to number 1. But you cannot say 1 and have in mind 100, because for you to have 100, you have to have 1 and 00 to show that it is 100. So the main point here is that this number in green, this 0 in green, can be removed. You can just write your answer as 0.01. Okay, we've come to the end of this video, and I'm sure you have learned how to multiply both whole numbers and decimals by powers of 10, including positive and negative powers. So, what have you learned in this lesson? I'm sure you've learned a lot. If you think you haven't gotten it, go back and watch this video again and pause the video every step of the way. Practice with my illustrations, practice with the examples, practice with the exercises, okay? You will get it. And now, once you're ready, you have learned it. Yes, I know how to multiply by powers of 10. Then you must complete the quiz for this lesson, which is SF03, multiply by powers of 10. And you do this quiz from our WhatsApp group. I'm sure if you're a GMS student or pupil, your parent must be in our WhatsApp group. If your parent is not in the WhatsApp group, tell them to contact the admin and send their number so they can be added to the WhatsApp group. If they go to the WhatsApp group, they will get a link to this video and a link to the quiz for this lesson, okay? Otherwise, you can go to our Facebook page, Gleaming Moon School. On the post section of the page, you will find a link to the quiz for this lesson, okay? Alternatively, you can get in touch with the admin at the school office and the admin will send you a link to this quiz, okay? So do this quiz. If after doing it the first time you're not satisfied with your performance, you can try again. You can watch the video again over and over and over. Do the quiz as many times as you want until you get it right. Because one thing with mastering mathematics is that you will learn to practice, practice, and practice. That is the best way to master mathematics. So that brings us to the end of this video. Our next lesson will be SF04 dividing by powers of 10. I will see you then. Bye-bye.